Yo, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Outriders video. Today let's take a look at some really awesome early unlocks and items that will help you a ton as you play in the game. Now things can get a little bit more difficult as you transition through your world levels, and if you want to progress to the next one, you're probably going to want to do a little bit of farming for that and get some really awesome gear along the way. And yes, that is definitely possible even in the early stages of the game, which is why in this video I want to cover all of these things that you should definitely know. But before jumping in, I want to give a huge shout out to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Opera GX is a browser made specifically for gamers, but it does so much more than that. You get access to really awesome integrations like for Twitch and Discord, which lets you quickly access your favorite content creators like myself or favorite communities right from the sidebar. If you like listening to music in the background when playing, the browser gives you quick access to Spotify, Apple Music and YouTube Music, all thanks to its GX player. And by the way, if you have any worry that this will have any impact on your gaming experience, then don't, because Opera GX was specifically designed to enhance your performance while playing video games. And that is thanks to the GX control, which lets you see how tabs utilize your performance, and also most important, find control over how much CPU and RAM these will use, so you never have to worry about your gaming experience. There's many other features inside, including a really awesome and extensive customization, so you can design your browser exactly as you like it. So totally go ahead and check it out, let me know what's your favorite feature about it, and of course another big shout out to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Let's begin with a really awesome epic shotgun that you can get very early on in the game, assuming of course that you didn't pass that point or chose a different weapon, because this is going to be not just a regular automatic shotgun, which is one of the best weapon types in the game, but it's also of epic quality, and it comes with the two best possible mod combinations for that stage in the game, and even later on, as that will carry you at least 5 or 10 more levels. So this weapon is something that you unlock by completing the main quest in the third area that you get to visit, which is the Eagle Peaks. It's also a pretty awesome area. You of course get to encounter this character right here, which goes by the name of Jocelyn, and she is going to put you on that track to finish the main campaign part in that area, and at the end of it is when you're going to be given your very first epic reward from a quest, which comes in the form of these 3 weapons. Now you can definitely pick the others if you want to. If you pick them already, it's not really a big deal, but if you aren't at that stage yet, what I suggest doing instead is to pick the automatic blue blood shotgun instead. Not only is this the best weapon type that you can have at that point in time, but as I've said, it comes with a fireworks and a minefield combo right there with the mods, which makes it extremely good both in single target damage and especially so in AoE damage. So the first one, fireworks, it makes it so that your attacks with the shotgun will shock the enemy for some pretty high damage, and it comes with a 3-second cooldown. Of course the range is also pretty high with a 5-meter radius, but then the minefield is even crazier because this has a much lower cooldown of only 1 second, and every time you kill an enemy with this, it's going to spawn a few mines from its body, which is going to deal some more AoE damage in another 5-meter radius. So the combination right here is really insane, especially the minefield is one of the best mod types that you can have on your weapons, and it's especially good because it comes in combination with the fireworks that can spawn on regular weapon hits. You don't have to kill the enemy, you just have to shoot it, and every 3 seconds you deal that additional damage on top. Now this brings us to the number 2 thing on the list. Now the thing about this is that this might be a little bit more RNG dependent. You might have to scrap a few items here and there until you get many of these mods, but in this video I want to cover some of the really amazing mods and mod combinations that will be very helpful, especially once you hit like World Tier 8 and above, where it is going to be even more necessary. So going over another really awesome mod for single target damage. Actually there's 2 of them, but I'm gonna start with the first one. It's called the Fusion Blast. It works very similar to the fireworks, as in you deal damage every like a few seconds when you shoot a target, except in this case it has an even even lower cooldown of about only 1.5 seconds, and the only downside to it is that it has a slightly smaller radius of only 5 meters instead of the 6 meters that you have with the fireworks. So it is excellent in single target damage, and especially so if you also combine it with something like the Storm Whip, which also shocks enemies every 1 second. You can constantly spam these two abilities, deal extra damage, and you're going to deal way more damage actually, even compared to the normal bullet damage that comes from that particular weapon. But this also brings us to some AoE really awesome mods that helped me a ton. One of them that I really like is the Bone Shrapnel. It works pretty similar to the Minefield, except it's more instant. So when you kill an enemy, it detonates that enemy, causing them and their bones to turn into shrapnel that deals high, extremely high actually, AoE damage in a 5-meter radius. And keep this in mind, it's only on a 1 second cooldown. So here is an amazing mod combination that I put on one of my shotguns. This is specifically for huge AoE damage when I'm in situations where enemies swarm me and whatnot. So the best AoE combo right now that I'm using is Bone Shrapnel plus Minefield, which, as you can see, instantly deletes enemies even in world tier 8. So usually to take down even one of these enemies it would require like 1, 2 or even 3 shots, and that is only for one of them. But if I use that Bone Shrapnel and Minefield, I can only shoot once and everybody's gonna be dead on the battlefield. Reason being is that Bone Shrapnel, once it explodes, it causes other enemies to explode, which further explode, and they all explode, dealing more AoE damage as it progresses. And then there's also like the huge amount of mines that kind of spawn all over the place and further deal AoE damage. So they all kind of feed into each other for some really high and really satisfying kind of damage. It's gonna suck in single target damage, but for AoE situations, that is why I said it's nice to have two separate guns, one specifically for high-end bosses for really high HP values, and a second one for, well, AoE damage like this shotgun right here. Moving on to number 3, another thing that you should pay attention to, and yes, I do know that this sounds pretty simple and intuitive, is to check and make sure that at least a few of your pieces come with bonus HP values. Now the reason for that is pretty simple, and that is because just having armor on your gear isn't going to cut it, especially on the higher challenge. Like, let me just give you an example right here. I have over 4,000 armor, which is way higher than my HP, and plenty enough to stop like 45% of the physical incoming damage. But even that is not gonna be enough, because enemies don't just deal physical damage, they can also use abilities or fire effects or some other types of abilities that don't count as physical damage, case in which you will definitely want another layer of protection on top, which comes in the form of these HP ups. So when you get a specific piece of gear, also keep in mind the HP values on that, because by default your character barely comes with any, and eventually you're going to reach levels where you're going to get way more HP from your gear than from your own character and leveling. And there's also another armor mod that at least I recommend in the early stages. It's also really helpful at mitigating some of the damage, and it comes in the form of this Perseverance shield that you can randomly get on gear. Again, all RNG dependent, so check if you got it already in case you missed it, but it's very useful as it gives you almost 400 shield when your HP drops below 30%, and it has a relatively short cooldown of only 5 seconds, which means that as long as you wait those 5 seconds in between getting your HP below 30%, this means you can constantly generate that shield and kinda have it act as a form of cheat death mechanic that would save you 1 hit or 2 hits or even 3 depending on the enemy. So definitely useful to have that on top as well. Now, on a final note, the only other thing that I will cover quickly here in this video is going to be all about your class skill selection. Now, I'm not entirely sure how you're going to play it with your class, but for the Trickster, what I recommend starting with is the Assassination skill tree, simply because there's so so many powerful abilities and passives here that will increase your damage by up to 150%, and this is going to be amazing against bosses. It's one of the best classes as you level up to clear out bosses that might otherwise be a little bit more complicated, like the disruptive firepower, which increases your weapon damage by 50% when you activate, for example, your bubble or other deception skill. There's also the Outriders executioner, which makes it so that when I activate a movement skill, like for example that teleport behind enemy's back, so that's 100% increased damage for 8 seconds between these two if I combine them. So like go against the boss, teleport behind it, pop a bubble, then also pop one of your skills, like for example the twisted rounds, and you're gonna deal some really huge damage against it. Like I think that at level 20 I can pull over 7,000 damage per crit shot, but I'm gonna show that in a different video, by the way, which also shows a really amazing epics farming method quite early on in the game. And then there's also like the sign of power, which further gives you additional damage when one of these damage skills end. Like for example, after finishing with the twisted rounds, I at least retain another 50% damage for that too, so that is also really awesome. And there's many more on top. This is again dependent on your class. Also in regards to those mods, it's gonna be a little bit more RNG, but if you already have them, better make use of them because they are going to help you quite a lot. Again, building your character is king in this game, and you're going to want to do that in the leveling process as well. Thank you so much for watching though, and I'll see you guys in the next one.